Grand Rising, guys and goddesses. It is yours truly, Dr. Zaya Kemet. And I help overthinkers who struggle to speak their truth and be themselves, craft and implement the ultimate blueprint to total life transformation through alchemy, psychology, and herbalism. I was designed to birth and rear a new nation of leaders, thinkers, strivers, overcomers, and creators. And when I step into my purpose, well, let me talk to you about my mission first. My mission is to teach those individuals how to embrace their inner God and goddess, turn their pain into power, and leverage all that magical goodness for themselves instead of utilizing it to empower those who would rather see you remain a second-class citizen. When I tap into my higher power, my obstacles dissipate effortlessly, allowing me to move forward in purpose and power. I'm happy to see y'all this morning. I decided to go ahead and come on and talk about another download that has been on my heart. I have several, and so I have several more coming to you. Be prepared for a change of scenery because we won't be in this car much longer. But today I want to talk to you. I'm talking to the pioneers of this generation today, and those of us who have been placed in their charge as well. This is a conversation about stepping outside of the box. This is the conversation. This is meant for any individual who considers themselves the black sheep, the outsider, the one who's always misunderstood. You may be the loner because you see things differently. And because you see things differently, you are not willing to yield to the beliefs and systems that keep you and yours bound. Okay? So now that I have given us an introduction or an overview of what we're going to be talking about today, this conversation is inspired by the overwhelming sense of emotion that I got from watching this cartoon movie, y'all. Have y'all seen Wild Robot? Y'all, that movie had me boo-hooing because I was like, I'm that damn robot. I'm the robot. But I also saw bits and pieces of myself in other characters as well. So let's talk about what it means to be a pioneer through the lens of being a wild robot. And so Wild Robot, if you don't know, it is a feminine machine. She's a robot. She has a specific code. She's not supposed to feel, she's not supposed to think, and she's not supposed to step outside of her design or the rules of where she comes from to fulfill her task. But a traumatic event happens that causes her to have to overwrite her code in order to fulfill her responsibilities and her destiny. And so her responsibility is to protect this little goose. Okay. This little goose gets caught up in the midst of some horrible catastrophe, and she puts herself in the line of danger in order to save this goose. She then she steps outside of her comfort zone and puts herself in a space of discomfort in a foreign space to not only save this goose from calamity and tragedy, but to then raise this goose in its environment and give it everything it needs in place of the mother who is no longer there. This comes with all different kinds of hurdles because the goose feels like an outsider. He doesn't feel like the other geese on the island. The robot does not feel equipped to take on this task, and not only that, her code is completely and totally different from the responsibility that has been placed on her. So I'm going to stop there and I'm going to draw some parallels to make this make sense. So in that moment, as I'm watching this go on, watching this happen, I'm thinking to myself, oh, wow, this robot is really brave and really an anomaly in a lot of ways, because it's willing to step completely outside of its comfort zone, to do what never has been done, without a rule book, to go completely and totally against the culture that it comes from, and to go completely and totally against the programming that was placed inside of it in order to do what it know is right. And in doing so, this robot learns a lot. This robot learns about community. And this robot learns a lot about emotional intelligence and managing relationships, and being accountable for its role in a very uncomfortable situation, and the taking on the condemnation for the decisions it had to make that other people didn't like, right? So in the process of saving this goose, this robot accidentally kills the little goose's mother. And so the little goose has to, be raised. She takes on the responsibility of raising this goose. And everything is fine when the goose is young, because all the goose knows is this robot is my mom. And then, but as the goose gets older, she realizes she has this responsibility of teaching this goose how to swim and teaching this goose how to fly, so that it can join the pack and fulfill its destiny, and being able to migrate to safer spaces when the conditions of the island begin to change. So I'm going to so all of what I'm observing and what I'm seeing, it makes me think about African Americans and the tragedy and calamity that was heaped upon us when we were taken from our ancestral lands and brought to America. And we not only survive, we thrive, and we've become the tastemakers of culture. When it comes to fashion, when it comes to food, when it comes to music, when it comes to art, dance, and all these other things, African Americans are the ones who set the tone, and everyone else follows us. And it is very interesting, the space that we find ourselves in, because we had to create a culture, because our culture was taken from us intentionally. It was not by accident, it was by design. Our culture was outlawed because it was too powerful. It was so powerful that it resisted colonism and prevailed in many cases. And now we find ourselves in a new age, in a new era, as a new version of this old design. And we are on many levels considered outsiders. If you begin to do the research and the background of how African Americans are perceived by other Black people of the diaspora, particularly Africans, we are looked down upon like the little goose. We're the runt. We're the motherless children, right? Who have no culture, have no language, have none of these things. That's how they look at us. But the reality is, we have some strengths and unique assets and benefits that empower the entire generation, the entire world. That little goose, even though he wasn't raised with everyone else, the other geese picked on him. They looked at him as an outsider. They downed him for the fact that he considered the robot his mom, and they even traumatized that boy by saying that you loving somebody who killed your mama. You not like us. But because the robot was so set on loving and protecting that goose, that robot, she was able to find someone to help him do what she could not. She can't teach him how to fly. She couldn't teach him how to swim. But you know what she did? She went and found somebody who was similar to him that could. He felt like his little wings was too small for him to be able to fly. She went and found another bird with small wings that was fierce and taught him the benefits of his design, and stuck with him until he was able to learn how to fly. And as the entire island of animals is watching this robot stay committed to protecting and developing this goose, and this goose begins to make progress, all of a sudden everybody starts to join in and cheer on the goose and commend the robot. But what happens in the process of the robot taking on this responsibility is the fact that she gets all kinds of bruises and scars and damage to her. When you stand in the gap, you're also standing in the line of fire. For those who do not understand, for those who are frustrated by the situation and have no other source to blame. And it's not an easy or a comfortable space to stand in, because because you're very different from where you come from, and you don't subscribe to the conditioning or the programming that was placed inside of you, because it doesn't fit the space that you're in. It handicaps you to operate by that code, and it causes harm to people that you care about when you operate by that code. And so you have to be brave enough and stoic enough, yet empathetic enough, to operate from a space of detachment where you are just surrendering, going with the flow, and allowing yourself to experience everything that is happening in real time. It requires forgiveness. It requires empathy. It requires courage. It requires an extreme understanding and ability of how to take care of yourself and protect your energy and to preserve yourself in order that you are able to continue doing what you're doing. It can be lonely. Don't nobody want to stand up to that kind of responsibility. But when you love someone enough, you do it. When you are that committed to your purpose, you will do it. When you realize the alternative is so uncomfortable and so dehumanizing, then you have no other option. And so I'm gonna close with this. When the goose found out that the robot was the one was partially responsible for the death of its mom, it began to blame the robot for all of its discomfort and all of its shortcomings. And it stopped trying. It stopped trying. It cut off its lifeline and its support for actually being able to reach its full potential and development. And it began to struggle. And then it was found itself in exile because it was not accepted by the other kind that looked like him. And so this, of course, caused the robot a lot of pain. It caused everybody a lot of pain and a lot of discomfort because everything was out of order. But what's so powerful about the situation was, even though the goose turned on the robot and she was extremely hurt by this, at one point she was so hurt and so discouraged that she stopped trying to help. But then she realized that if she didn't help this goose, nobody else would. And he wasn't going to be able to fulfill his destiny, which was to be able to fly with the other geese. And so she made the courageous act of stepping up and continuing to push and support that goose, even though it hurt and they were in an uncomfortable place. There were a lot of things that were left unsaid, and they had not been able to reconcile. The situation was so urgent that they couldn't even focus on all the emotional stuff because they had to get the bare minimum responsibilities done in order to achieve these goals, right? These goals had timelines. And so what it taught me, to watch the robot go through those changes and have those experiences and step up and stand in the gap where it wasn't even appreciated or understood until it began to benefit everyone else, was that to whom much is given, much is required. And many times we are placed outside of the norm, outside of the box, outside of the culture, outside of anything that is considered socially acceptable, because there needs to be a balance. There needs to be some type of checks and balances put in place for man-made programming that constricts individuals from operating in a way that is healthy and beneficial, from operating from a space of balance, from operating in universal law, because that's what the robot was doing. The robot overwrote its programming because it understood that there was something greater at play. Something greater is the divine law of the universe that transcends any man-made word, spoken, written, or created as a law or rule on this earth. She followed her heart, which is connected to your intuition, right? And when you do that, everything will begin to work in your favor. She was placed in insurmountable positions against insurmountable odds, and she did what she thought was best at every turn. And every time that she took a step, even though sometimes it hurt, even though sometimes it caused her to be wounded and caused her to be bruised and caused her to feel like she was on the outside, and made her feel like, well, maybe I should just go back to where I came from and just submit to the rules. She decided not to do so until her mission was accomplished. And in doing so, she helped to develop a little baby goose who not only achieved all of his goals in terms of learning to fly and learning to swim, because it had to learn how to thrive outside of its normal environment. It was wired and it thought in a way that was able to overcome obstacles and attacks that its tribe, its traditional tribe and culture, were not ready and prepared for. Were not wired to think and problem solve around. And so that goose ended up leading the pack to safety, because he showed that pack how to bob and weave in uncharted territory in the midst of danger, and brought everybody back home to the island during springtime. And so there are many lessons in what I'm saying to you. But the question that I'm posing to you this morning is, are you ready to overwrite the code? We are in the age of Aquarius. Everything around us is changing. The ground is literally shifting below our feet. Laws are being made every day. And if we are not aware, and if we don't work together, then we will surely perish. So I ask you today, what code do you need to overwrite? I encourage you to go and watch the movie, because when the goose left the island, the robot felt alone. Winter came, and all of these animals that was always at each other's throats, always hating each other and everything, she went out and she grabbed and she saved all of those animals, all these predators and prey in one place, and they had to figure out how to overwrite their codes, their programming, to not fight, to not prey on each other, to not scheme, to not be afraid of each other, to not pass judgment, and to coexist in a space and work together against a common enemy. One, first and foremost, just to survive the winter. And then when the attackers came to come and get the robot, they band together and they started working together to beat a huge giant that they wouldn't have been able to do if they were divided, if they continued to hate one another, if they continued to judge one another. All of those flaws that they made fun of each other about became the very strengths and assets they needed to be able to defeat the enemy. So while there is a responsibility on the pioneer to be the first to overwrite its programming in order to be able to effectively and efficiently transition into the next generation, the next cycle, the next timeline. Those who are watching, those who are benefiting, those who are in the vicinity who want change and don't have a blueprint for how to do that, also have a responsibility to overwrite their code. Who do you need to forgive today? What do you need to be responsible for and take accountability for today? Who do you need to stop judging? Who do you need to learn and become an ally with and begin to work more closely with? Who do you need to reconcile with? Who do you have things left unsaid with? Who was it that you didn't get that you haven't said? Who is it that you love that you haven't gotten the opportunity to do so because of the tension and the friction between you, because of the insecurity and the fears of being rejected? Who of you is brave enough to put all your fears and insecurities to the side and do what God is calling you to do, and surrender to what your intuition and the universe is tapping you on the shoulder and telling you is necessary to do in this time? All right, y'all, I gotta go. But I did have that on my heart, and I wanted to share that, provide those words of encouragement, some questions for introspection and journaling. But I gotta go. So as I always say, I love you to life, and I look forward to taking this journey with you. If you are inspired by these words and you want to work one-on-one with me, you can go to www.rideswithziya.com and take the metaphysical and set up your free consultation for us to get started and see what the transcendence journey would be like for you. If you just want a safe space to be able to talk about things like this and process through where you are in these kinds of scenarios because this resonates, then I encourage you to go to the Kepra Collective. That is KHEPERA Collective with a K on Facebook. It is the Facebook group. And request entry. Make sure you answer the questions, because if you don't, then we you won't be provided entry. All right, y'all. I look forward to seeing you on the transcendence journey. And I'm up out of here. Peace.